I love to cook at home, and having good kitchenware makes all the difference in the world. Not only does good equipment make prep and cooking easier, but it makes it more enjoyable. This is why both Joel and I are huge fans of Made in Cookware. Their wide range of cookware, from pots and pans to knives and flatware and even glassware, are designed to be professional quality for right in your home. Joel is a big fan of their knife sets, and I just upgraded all of our stock pots and saucepans to Made in stainless steel ones. This goes along with my many other stainless steel, carbon steel pans that I have. I have over a dozen pieces, and I absolutely swear by Made In's products. Next, I'm getting a set of beer glasses. Yes, beer glasses for the whole podcast crew. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN. Find out why pros like Grant Achatz, Sean Brock, Nancy Silverton, and Eric Repair trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN, and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast that used to be With It, but then they changed what it was. Now, what we are isn't it anymore, and what's it seems weird and scary. So, welcome to United We Drink right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and all of those other fun, crazy places. Before introducing our co-hosts, I just want to say we are now a The Batman podcast, so if you're here for beer, tune out. And the man behind all of that, Joel Codner.
I am here for it.
I am apparently the only one on the show who hasn't seen the movie yet, and I'm watching it tomorrow night, so get ready next episode to be fully engulfed into this transition period for us. With us, as always, is Kevin Abbott, who has seen the movie, and he disagrees with Joel to a certain extent, but seemed to enjoy the movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the Batcast is going to go very well. I think just starting with a good intro from a Simpsons reference is already a good place to begin with. So, off to a good start, gentlemen. Let's hope that this one's much better than the crap about the beer industry.
Thank you for getting the reference. You looked confused for a second, but I'm glad that you got where I was going with that. All right.
I before you get into that, I wasn't confused. I know that quote, and I was just saying there's a lot of words in there. It's kind of intricate, and I was wondering if you were going to fuck it up. And I was really crossing my fingers. And at one point, you started to kind of slow down. I was like, he got it. I was rooting for you, Mike. I am a cheerleader of you and your expertly crafted intros.
I had it up on my screen, and I still managed to get lost at one point. So, yeah, I'm proud of myself as well. Gentlemen, it is a Thursday evening, the day after 420 when we're recording this. Is anyone participating in alcoholic beverages tonight? Kevin?
Yeah, I've got a triple from UNE Brewery. UNE, I don't know. This is...
Oh, I think that's pronounced Unane. They're out of suburban Chicago, not far from where I grew up.
Well, it's not bad. It's a decent American triple. Really, really malty. I'm digging that. And I've also got myself some knockoff imitation Crown Royal from Costco that I will be enjoying fairly soon. I'm also, just so you guys know, I am drinking out of a glass from the organ grinder in Toronto. I got this on my 6th grade class trip.
It kind of looks like the Red Lobster glass that Joel brings out every once in a while for his online pictures.
Did I have a Red Lobster glass?
I thought you did.
I thought I did too. I had a weird thing last year where I was buying all sorts of weird, kitschy, old school glassware from eBay. The fucking Garfield glass that I have, I found out, is like covered in mercury. No, it's lead paint. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Lead paint is what it is, which is classic 80s.
It's nice to know that Batman is not unique, that your eccentricities express themselves in so many unique and spirited ways. So
he's the world's greatest detective, and I honed those skills to figure out what was in the paint on the glassware I should not be drinking.
You definitely have one of the Red Lobster ones because it kind of is ribbed like the IPA glass. And I remember when that IPA glass came out, you cracked that out and were like, hey, I've had the IPA glass butt plug thing for a long time. I do.
Well, no, other people brought that out. Like, that picture was going around the internet. I don't think I got one until recently.
Oh, really?
But that must be in my garage. We still have a lot of like glassware and dishes and shit that we just didn't want to load up the new kitchen with.
I do like your Smucker's jelly glasses.
Oh, the Tom and Jerry jam jar?
Yeah, I had those as a kid. I
in-laws.
fucking wish I still had those. Joel, what are you drinking?
I am drinking cranberry lime polar 100% natural calorie-free seltzer.
No hard Mountain Dew tonight?
No. I'm getting off the sauce again. I had a whole bunch on Easter and then pretty much one a day with dinner since then, and now I'm off it again. But I also have some still ice water in my Lewis Black go fuck yourself looking Starbucks type cup.
He's coming to South Florida in December.
Oh yeah, that's
I sent
right.
you a link to that and you never responded.
I'd love to go see Lewis Black.
Yeah, he's playing the Kravis Center.
Awesome.
Let's do
I
it.
was invited by our friend Ed Roberts to see Wu-Tang.
The same night?
No. No.
They're actually on the same bill. It's Wu-Tang opening up for Lewis Black. It's
That
very
makes sense.
special.
It's Nas, Wu-Tang, and Lewis Black.
Together at last.
I'm having I have my Liquid Death. I have some High Ridge IPA from our brewery Copper Point, and then I have a little glass of Buffalo Trace as well to get me through this. I know that I said on Twitter, but I wanted to put it out on the podcast. Thanks to Austin, gentleman who is a fan of the show, friend of the show. He just came up to the brewery a couple weeks ago and was like, hey, man, I always see that you say you can't find Buffalo Trace. Well, I found this in Coral Springs, so I snagged you a bottle. And I was like, dude, thank you so much. I don't know why people like to give me free stuff. I'm not that special of a person. But thank you very much for that. And I am definitely enjoying it. It's more than halfway gone.
I cannot find Buffalo Trace anywhere.
I cannot find $10,000 in cash no matter where I look. So if anyone can help me out with that, I'd really, really appreciate it.
I can help you find it very easily. All you need is a gun.
I thought you were going to pull off one of those like ads for those signs that you see on light posts like make $10,000 from working at home. And
you know what the worst is? These fucking articles that come up where it's like, this 34-year-old made $6 million working part-time 5 hours a week. It's like, what the fuck is this clickbait bullshit? I swear I see one of those every day.
Yeah. I mean,
Because it's
fucking
clickbait
internet.
bullshit, and people click on it and go, I wish I could, I'm going to be able to do that. I grew up in a household where my mother's long-term boyfriend had a lot of get-rich-quick schemes, almost like a sitcom. There was, countless things that he was going to sell or make or produce, and I have some traumatizing memories of things like that. So I stay away from those articles.
So he was pretty much every cast member of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, without the funny parts, probably.
Or the charm, or the looks, personality. He wasn't a good guy. Let's just put it that way. So, not to bring the whole podcast down, but let's get on to some really uplifting stuff.
Okay. Joel. I feel like this is becoming my running thing. I intro the show, I introduce him, and then I throw all the rest of it at Joel or Kevin to kind of run things.
And then you get Buffalo Trace bourbon.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a good gig for you.
Hey, I'm the one who has to spend over an hour editing your audio alone. So
Fair. Okay.
I wouldn't say I deserve it, but I earned it. Joel rolling his eyes. I feel like I used that right.
Yeah.
Joel, tell us what we're talking about tonight.
All right. So I saw something interesting earlier. Tweeted out. Oh, God, why did I say tweeted out? I hate tweeted out. Tweets only go out. It's redundant. Like, there's nowhere else tweets go. Anyway.
They go in.
People stop saying tweeted out. That's my last call. So he tweeted an image. It looks like a cropped screenshot from the Craft Beer Advisory Services 2022 Employee Satisfaction Report. It looks like there is a 2022 Employee Satisfaction Report presentation on YouTube. So I have not had a chance to look at that, but I'm going to as soon as we wrap up here. But an interesting part of this screenshot is, I guess, people who were surveyed were given certain statements, and then they had to select how much they agreed or disagreed with that. So the one part of this caption here, or this screenshot, the question or the statement that you are supposed to agree or disagree with is, I am happy to work at my brewery. And the results are very interesting because they are divvied up by the position in the brewery. So if you start with 70% of owners strongly agreeing with being happy to work at their brewery, 65% in front of house strongly agree, front of house being tap room, bartenders, people like that.
Waiters,
servers.
Yeah.
60% in business roles strongly agree. So that could be marketing, that could be accounting, that could be all the office ins and outs, the business side of the brewing industry. And then 26% of brewing operations people strongly agreed with that statement. Practically 1 in 4. Not a good number. These are the people who are producing the beer, cellaring the beer, packaging the beer. That's a scary number. And, obviously I'm the kind of realist / pessimist when it comes to this podcast, and what I've mentioned before many times as the hashtag craft beer circle jerk. I think this is a very startling number to actually see it on paper. We tweet with people all the time. We talk to people on social media. We see people saying all sorts of things about breweries not paying living wages or not being safe environments or just general stress. It's a hard fucking job. I mean, we've all done it. We all do it, on this podcast, and we've all had our different experiences with it. But to actually see this thing being surveyed and the numbers to be such a stark contrast. I mean, 70% of owners versus 26% of the people responsible for making the beer. It's a pretty rough number. I mean, I think that should turn a lot of heads. What do you guys say?
I mean, I'll jump in. Being someone who's worked on each side of those, being inside the bar and the front of the house, being inside operations and being inside the brewery, I think I was surprised. I was not surprised that the brewery people, the operation people, as far as producing beer, would be the lowest. That didn't surprise me at all. I was surprised that it got down to as low as 1 in 4, basically. I would have guessed in the 30% range. But it's really not surprising. My experiences with doing that job and having to oversee and manage people doing that job is that in some way, shape, or form, and I'm taking all the responsibility for the sake of this conversation off of breweries and what they can pay people and all that out of the equation. At some point, breweries are telling their, either deliberately, directly, or just through the way that they run the brewery or they have to run the brewery, that the joy of making beer is a perk to your job. And that, yes, it's high hours, low wages, intense physical work, but you're making beer, so automatically you're just in a better spot because you're being able to be creative, you're making alcohol at the end of the day, it's fun, it's a cool industry, you get to tell your friends you work at a brewery, and at some point that's supposed to like make up for, you know, not having a wage that's 10% higher than what it actually is. And that seems to be kind of consistent when I look around the industry of how people kind of feel about their jobs. And what I see over and over again is once some of those ideas wear off, once you have made the same batch of wit beer 87 times, and once you have gotten over the fact of going to a bar and having your beer for the first time and being able to order it and getting excited about seeing it show up on those grocery shelves and seeing it reviewed in magazines, once that becomes the norm, people start looking and going, well, is this the job for me? Is this going to be worth it for me long term? And I think a lot of people hang on because they don't have other options. They want it to get better. They're hoping for advancement. But I see a lot of disillusionment in the brewing aspect of things, and it's warranted.
To bring up like the famous quote, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. The greatest trick that brewery owners ever pulled was convincing brewery folks that they could pay their bills on passion. And it's going to be 10 years in the industry for me in a few weeks. And I've learned a lot in that time. And I was definitely a person who was tiptoeing around things in order to get my feet in the door and then to maintain my place in the door, because I felt like if I spoke out about something, I would be fired and I wouldn't get a job anywhere else. Well, you get in this industry long enough, you know that people move around like fucking grifters in this industry sometimes. And like people who are bad at their fucking job in this industry sometimes have no problem finding another job after going from another brewery. But I've learned to respect myself and respect my skill set and respect what I've learned, and that if that opinion isn't going to be respected and with also, I feel like adequate pay, good, safe place to work in, then I don't need to be there. And I'm not saying that that's exactly what I'm going through right now, but there have been instances where I've felt that way over the last decade. And I am really happy to soon no longer be working in a brewery, in the physical brewery, that is, because as I said in the last episode, my body hurts, my mind hurts, and I am sick and tired of it. And I am more than like, I'm not going to get into what my pay is. It's probably not enough, but it's something that, you know what, I'm looking at the best interests of my health and my family at this point, and I want to be around for them as long as I can, and continuing to work in a brewery is probably not the best way for me to maintain that. And I want other people to know that. And I don't want to take away someone's ability, like someone's passion. If someone really wants to get into this industry, like, awesome. And I know that some of these words that I'm going to say are going to go directly into one of my coworkers' ears. Hi, Jason, because he listens to the show, and I feel like he's only been in this industry about a year, and I feel like he's learned a lot from me, possibly some bad, some good, but he's caught on to a lot of the stuff that goes on in this industry very quickly. Sometimes listening to this podcast, sometimes just listening to me bitch and moan. But I think that a lot of people need to understand that getting into this, and those who are in it, look, don't think that you have to be stuck in this. There are other options, despite what you might think. Because I think that this industry really does a great job of making people feel like you don't have other options outside of there. I think Kevin kind of talked about that. So, like, know that there's other stuff out there.
And we've heard stories many times from employees working for hype breweries who get told things like, "Go ahead, quit. There's 100 people waiting to take your spot. They would love to be a part of this." And that's just a horrible fucking thing to say, and it's a horrible attitude to have. As far as this conversation goes, I feel like a part of me needs to recuse myself because Kevin's my boss. I'm the operations person in the poll. Not that I'm the 26%, but anything I discuss about this, it's not going to be current because I'm fine right now, but. When you first get into this, just like when you first get into drinking beer, there is a level of indoctrination. Just like in the beginning when you're told all macro beer is low quality, cheap, fizzy piss water, and our, local diacetyl bomb is quality and ethical and all that shit. When you first start working, you're also, at least in my experience, you're kind of indoctrinated into the idea that this is a local / family-owned / independent startup company, and we can only pay you so much. And you kind of buy into it because it's like, hey, I get to make beer, I get to serve beer, I get to drink beer. It's fun, kind of like what Kevin was saying before. And after a while, you start thinking like, I'm having a tough time making ends meet, but my boss keeps parking his fucking boats and cars and recreational vehicles and all his weekend toys that I'm probably paying for with my labor. And, I don't even have health insurance, but all the owner's toys are on display for everyone to see because, hey, I got a big fucking warehouse, might as well use it for storage too, right? And then I had another boss who knew nothing about beer and was just a rich guy who wanted to own a brewery. And while I was well taken care of there, the overall business itself wasn't. But I could very much see these first two bosses absolutely being part of the 70% who strongly agree with being happy at the brewery with where they work, because they never really have to be there. They're reaping all the profit, and someone else is doing all the work. You know what I mean? So why... I mean, these numbers look dead on to me.
So one of the things I want to put out there is, first of all, I always encourage Joel, we're on this podcast. We don't just have a business relationship. We have a friendship, and we also have this, camaraderie of doing this podcast together. And there's absolutely nothing you could say about the operations of Barrel of Monks here that would upset me at all. So please, if there is anything you would ever want to talk about, you're always free to do so, and you'd seek no repercussion from me.
All right, good. Here's problem number one.
One of the things this is the kind of boss I want to be. And I have felt like I have been in the past. Probably not as much as I've desired, but this is the kind of boss I want to be. I want to be the kind of person who is very honest and straightforward about what the earning potential is of your role, what the advancement potential is of your role, and try to pitch a job as this should be a mutually beneficial situation. Whenever it gets to the point where it is not mutually beneficial, if you want to leave, you will not be insulted. You will not be told you'll not find a job anywhere else. You will not be said, well, I gave you all this knowledge and gave you this opportunity. It will be more of, good luck. I hope you find a better spot for you. I hope you can make more money. I hope you can work less hours. And I've been in that situation, and that to me is a goal, because there are two different ways in which to be unhappy. There's a lot of different ways to be with which to be unhappy, but I guess if you're looking at this it's more complex than just happiness and unhappy in your job. You have the genuine bad people to work for, people that abuse you verbally, even physically. You have people that don't respect their employees and that flaunt these opportunities they have in front of them. And then you have just the necessities of the business as it is. How to make money, how to be successful, how to start a business and try to grow it, and the financial realities of that. And this business is built on, especially in the breweries that we have all worked at, of a bunch of people needing to take less money than they can make in other places sometimes to try to get the business to a level where everyone can do better. Hopefully the brewery grows. Hopefully the people grow in their roles and they can be rewarded from it. But there's no guarantee in that, right? You sign on with a brewery and you say, man, I hope this is an opportunity. I hope they take care of me. But at some point, I don't see it happening. I've got to seek opportunities elsewhere. A good boss is going to be okay with that. Not going to try to make you feel bad about that. And we've all experienced good bosses and poor bosses in this industry. We've all experienced good bosses and poor bosses in any industry. I don't know that the brewing industry is unique in that way. I just think that there is an unrealistic expectation of how happy you should be in doing this. Because when you go to a party and you're the beer guy, people think that your life is a laugh-a-minute riot and that everything is so great, and they don't realize that you're working in a brewery, busting your back, and making $30,000 a year. They have no idea that that's the realities of it. And then when that walks up the chain, the people in that position might have no idea that if they gave you a $10,000 raise, which is absolutely what you deserve, the brewery would be out of business in 6 months. So what do? Do you say, well, in that case, we'll just shut the brewery down and fine, okay, you win? Or do you try to keep the people you can, entice them with opportunities, hopefully in the future, and goodwill, and trying to get camaraderie and all this kind of stuff, and plug away and try to be successful? it's in a lot of ways it's a no-win situation for the people on the top too. And I know it sounds like a woe is me kind of thing coming from people that had $1 million or whatever it is to start a brewery, but those are the realities of the business as it is.
Do you not think, though, that is you're almost accepting that turnover is inevitable with something like that?
100%.
As opposed to growing with your people at a reasonable rate to where, like, and saying something like this to someone who's you guys are what, 6 years old now? Seven. Okay. Yeah, we're about to do our 7th as well. Like it means nothing. It's moot. You're open. But like starting your business at a rate to where you have 1 employee, 2 employees, whatever, and you make sure that they're taken care of, and you make how much that you can make to take care of them and not overwork them and scale accordingly. It just seems like that concept, that idea has been thrown out the window with people opening up breweries with 50-barrel brew houses and in like 30,000 square foot buildings, and being like, all right, well, I need to hire 4 people right off the bat, and they all need to make $25,000 to $30,000 because that's how much I can do, and because I need to sell the X amount of beer at this cost. That's just it's I feel like too many breweries are starting off on the wrong foot by doing that. I'm not saying that I'm an economist or I know how to fucking run a business, because I haven't done it, but accepting the fact that your people are going to leave you because we're like, I appreciate the thought and concern for them and not holding ill will towards them, because that is a very important thing. Because I mean, there are fucking people who like are gonna hate you for looking out for yourself, but like that acceptance is almost an acceptance of defeat to a certain extent, and I just. It seems discouraging and disheartening to hear something like that.
It's certainly discouraging, but it just comes down to the realities of the situation. I mean, the fact I worked at a brewery where I did not get paid for a year and a half, not on a 50-barrel brew house that needed to hire 10 people, when I was the only brewery employee on a 1-barrel system.
And that's fucked up.
Of course, but I made that gamble and said, okay, I will do this. I will find a way to make my living in this other place for the skill set that will hopefully allow me to grow and get an opportunity. And I'm a grown man. I made that decision, and I would do it again, given the situation that I was in and what has happened with me in my career since then. What I'm trying to say is that you can start a 1-barrel brew house, you can start a 3-barrel brew house, you can start a 50-barrel brew house. The scalability and understanding and a business plan of what the realities of your financials are going to be, unless you are extremely skilled and knowledgeable in business, which is precisely 0% of people that open breweries, at least the ones that I know, is preposterous. You start, you don't know how much you're going to be able to produce. You don't know what your competition is going to be next week because 10 new breweries just opened up. And you're finding your way through the fog and trying to figure out where you fit. Even some breweries down here that are breweries that are just beating them all out of the door because they can't have enough space. Some of them opened up with completely different concepts than the one that actually made them famous and made them hit. And there's always this change of the guard and new styles come out. And you didn't even plan to become this kind of brewery, and all of a sudden this is the thing that takes off, and you've got to go with it because that's your only opportunity at success. I think that it is okay to be discouraged by it. It's okay to be frustrated and mad when you are in that situation. I begrudge nobody those feelings. But if you've got X amount of money and passion, you want to start a brewery, and you're going to say, listen, I'm going to pay these guys what I can pay them. I'm going to hope that we grow into it, and I'm going to hope we're going to pay them more one day. If we can't, and they've aged out of the job because they're getting older, they need more money, they've experienced out of the job because they have opportunities elsewhere, and they can become a head brewer somewhere else or become a brewer from a cellarman. That's another part of the grand work flow of every business. Restaurant business works in the same way. I mean, you plan on a certain amount of turnover while you're trying to get your feet under you. Now, if you go into a brewery that is wildly successful and putting millions of dollars a year into the coffers of the owners, and they've got someone on the floor making $25,000 a year, yeah, I'd be pretty pissed about that. I think it's fine to go over that. If you're seeing your owner buying toys and taking lavish trips and not supporting you at all, damn right, get mad. I'm with you on that. But if a business isn't making money, a solution of giving more money to the staff, even if it's deserved, only hastens your business going out of business, and you needing to find a job elsewhere sooner. So a person making that decision to go, I can no longer, this is all I can stand and I can't stand this no more, that's in most cases is going to be on the employee.
But
Well, Kevin, you brought up a great point that was going to be the next thing I said, which is most of these people opening breweries have no business experience whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did have some, like, perfect example is the second owner I worked for. I won't get into too much detail, but I will say that this was a highly successful, high-profile, white-collar, executive-type person who had already made their fortune and now wanted a brewery. And, you know, it was great in the beginning. You know, it was like Jurassic Park. We spared no expense. I mean, you know, every manager, including me, gets a, you know, company Amex, get what you need, you know. And the idea was, if I don't know what I'm doing, then I'm going to hire the right people who do and defer to them while still overseeing everything. And that didn't last very long. I mean, once, you know, the spending gets out of control and the business side of it is run like shit, everything just starts going to hell and really bad decisions start getting made. There's a great section on this. I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast in Kitchen Confidential, where Anthony Bourdain talks about, you know, the dentist who wants to open a restaurant and then starts having stupid, crazy discounts or specials or all of these doomed tactics, trying to resurrect a failing business that only hasten its demise.
Which, by the way, every brewery person should read Kitchen Confidential.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. But it's... No, it's fine. And, you know, Kevin makes great points coming from the owner perspective. You know, started as a brewer and bartender and is now an owner and has great perspective on a lot of this. I think the area I would slightly disagree in is if the idea of, like, needing to pay people more will cripple a business, then I think it's on the business to find a way to earn more or cut costs or find ways to make itself more sustainable, because the dissatisfied or underpaid or unhappy employee, whatever they might be, can certainly move on and no hard feelings and the whole thing, like you said, but that doesn't change the dynamics of the brewery. That doesn't change. I mean, the brewery will still seem to be on its current trajectory.
That was exactly where I was kind of wanting to go with this. Is you you keep on resigning yourself to the fact that you're going to turn over people because you can only pay X amount of dollars. Are you really growing? And like, I just think like with people who get stressed and overworked for less pay, and it's like if you got two people in the brewery, like one making work, one on the cellar, and you're trying to tell them like, hey, I need you guys to make 3,000 barrels a year. Those two people, like, nah, like, well, you guys can't get raises and we can't bring in any other people. Well, then you don't get 3,000 barrels. Like,
Yeah.
I think that this stuff happens way too much, that it's like, we need you guys who are being paid not that much, working a whole lot, to work a whole lot more to make this much so that we can pay you guys what you're making now, and maybe you'll get a little bit more. We can't bring in another person. Like, and some of this it goes to what Kevin said. Like, almost every person who opens up a brewery doesn't know how to run a business, let alone a brewery. And this stuff is hindsight, and that like, oh, we probably shouldn't have done this when we opened up. We probably shouldn't have done that when we opened up, because then we could be making X amount of beer, selling it through their tap room, have a few accounts or 3 counties of distribution, whatever. And all of the people who make the beer could be making living wages and be happy, and yada, yada, yada. But I guess I'm just talking about, this is what we are in right now. And if there is anyone who is thinking about opening a brewery, these are things that you need to take into consideration, not just think about how big, how much can I make right off the bat, and pay people dirt for it.
Well, but Micah, I think that there's a little bit of a presumption in that statement, in that it really has nothing to do. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the aspirations to make a ton of beer. There are breweries that because of where they are, what they're trying to accomplish, and what their overhead is, they could not survive making 500 barrels, 100 barrels, 1,000 barrels, or 10,000 barrels. Period. End of story. Because of multiple things. Some of it is economical, that's changed since maybe they purchased a business, or because they had a failed business model in the beginning. There are brew pubs that have done exactly what you're talking about, trying to start out very slow, but they can't necessarily pay somebody. How can you pay a full-time brewer in a very small brewery to make beer when you only need to be, making beer 1 day a week and doing cellar work and this, that, and the other, and your only outlet is here at this one bar, and my only growth potential is, my ceiling is so low because I can't move X amount of beer through X amount of bar stools. The economics of this are different for every single brewery and every single business. And without good planning and foresight, there are breweries that I guarantee have been chasing their tail since they made their first 1,000 barrels, up around 7, going, if we just get to 9, we're going to be in profitability now, guys. Not realizing that to get to 9, they've got to hire a new person, or they've got to get a new piece of equipment, or the glycol chiller goes down. I'm not trying to say, shed a tear for all the people who have opened a brewery. Shed a tear for all the people that had the money and the infrastructure to do that, because there's a lot of people with deep pockets that are in a lot better place than the people that they are employing. But the idea that you can just pay somebody more when there's no money to pay that person, it's a losing proposition. As I said earlier, if you are not making money at a brewery and your people are unhappy, and one of the reasons you're not making money is your people are unhappy, just giving them a raise and then making no money And going into Hawk for the next 6 months to a year puts that brewery out of business. So what is a person going to do? Are they just going to say, well, I shouldn't have done this anyway, and this was my bad, so I'm just going to close the doors? And that's what I worry is, if you take that to the next logical conclusion, that you're just going to start selling more beer. I mean, from my perspective, we're always trying to grow. I oversee 2 breweries. We're trying, man. We're always trying. Even if we're uber successful, we're trying to grow. We're looking for places to cut corners. In my position, I will literally be having conversations with people providing internet and playing one company off another for $5 a month. I'm looking every single place to cut costs. I'm looking every single place to be able to make more money, and then trying to strategize the best places for my sales reps to go out and whatnot. I know I'm getting a little long-winded here, but
that's fine.
I think that there's a notion of charity that we all need to give to one another. And in a bad situation where you've been burned and you've treated poorly by somebody that you've worked for, and I know we can all say that at different points of our lives, some in this industry, some out, it's really easy to think that there is ill will or some kind of baseline badness involved there. If you want people to look at your situation with an idea of where you're coming from and see it from your point of view, giving the charity to that business entity, unfortunately, sometimes is a necessity to understand what the actual realities of that business are. I've had 1,000 people in this industry come to me and tell me, man, you know those guys on the street, they're doing so well. And all I ever say is, have you seen their books? Well, they got 20 people, they're 20 deep at the bar. Don't mean shit. You can be the busiest restaurant in town, doesn't mean you're making money. Doesn't mean you're going to be there 6 weeks from now. You can make the best beer, the best sandwich, the best bread, the best soup. Doesn't mean you're going to be open in 6 months. A lot of things have to break right, and you got to make a lot of good decisions, and you got to get real lucky.
No, I totally agree with that aspect. And, I mean, how many times did you guys come into the brew pub and it was fucking slammed? I mean, obviously great location, but, totally slammed. And if I were to show you the books, you'd go, holy fuck, it's all red. And just, complete incompetence with spending and a total disaster. And, then fucking win best beer in Florida and you're out of business 14 months later. So 100% on all that. But I think we're dwelling a little too much on the financial aspect of it. I know it's a hugely important, major factor of all this, because obviously if you can't afford to live, you aren't going to enjoy life. I think we covered a lot of that, and I don't think any of us have an easy answer or solution to it other than, winning the Powerball. But I think there's some other aspects to this that we can get into a little bit. I know we're about 3/4 of the way into the show already. There's also the safety aspect of it, the culture aspect of it. I think you can be, like, I was paid very well at the brew pub, but wasn't an enjoyable experience. Couldn't get a decent staff to save my life, because I was up against general managers who came from, fast casual dining experience, chain restaurants, and didn't understand the concept of the place. High turnover. I mean, very stressful for someone like me who thought they had the ideal job, but incredibly toxic environment, brutal hours, brutal commute. On paper, it was the greatest job ever, but, it was a fucking living hell at certain points.
I mean, I think talking about some of those other aspects of the job is huge, because yes, the financial aspects, if you can't make your bills, you're never going to be happy. But the environment and how you're respected, going back to a place that we all work together, I was one of the people that I always felt like my voice was heard and that I was respected and I was working on an equal footing with the owner. And even though parts of my job sucked, I took that home with me. And then I would look at someone like Mike, who's one of my best friends and who I respect and I know is not only competent, but is a valuable resource for this business, being treated like garbage and being the butt of jokes and being downplayed of the effectiveness and the ability to do a job or grow or do more than what you were tasked with doing at that job. And there's no way someone's ever going to be satisfied with that. The one thing that I will say to that is people in these jobs, to tie back in with something Mike said earlier, there are other jobs out there in the industry. If you have to go out of the industry and come back in, that's fine if you're really passionate about it. And there's a lot of assholes out there. But you should be heard. You should talk to people when you're unhappy. You should do what I didn't do in my first brewery job, which was just hold everything in and get resentful to the point that nothing could ever be salvaged and just blow up and leave. You should try to say what you need, and whether that just means a reduced schedule or eliminating a SKU because the amount of SKUs that you're dealing with are making your job impossible. You got to go and you got to try. You've got to treat that like a situation that's going to be beneficial to everybody and say, hey, I know you can't do more on my salary right now, but can you reduce my workload? Can you reduce my stress on this aspect of the job to make this thing work, and be vocal?
Yeah, those are great points because if you're running off of like 7 core brands and that is grinding you down, like, hey, maybe there's probably one of those in there that doesn't need to be done so often because it's probably in there for some weird reason, because some guy named Bob at the bar says it's the best beer that he's ever had. But you're right. Like that's and the core of what you said, Kevin, is the most important part, is talking to your boss and letting your voice be heard. And I think that there is just, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, there is a lot of fear of ruffling the feathers and potentially ostracizing yourself out of an industry job that you're still possibly new at. And let's be honest here. Like, the feathers who you might ruffle have probably only been in the industry just as long as you, maybe a little bit longer than you. Like, a lot of these people opening breweries are fucking new to this shit too. Like, especially if it's homebrew to professional, like, they don't know what the fuck they're doing on a production scale. It's having an honest, open line of conversation is important, and I'm trying to instill that in the people that I work with our boss, because like Matt and I, my boss, who owns Copper Point, Matt has been in the brewing industry over 20 years. And like, I get that he can be quirky and weird to some people. And he's built up a point to where he kind of comes across as trusting to me, to all of the other people. So they kind of like come to me and be like, hey, can you talk to Matt? Like, no, you guys can talk to him too. Like if you feel like you need backup, I'll go and I'll be there with you and support you. If like you make a good point and I agree with it, I'll be there. But you need to talk yourself. Like, this is your thing. And I was like that type of thing needs to exist all the time. People need to not be afraid to talk to their superiors. I don't know if anyone even technically works under me at Copper Point, but I have created a space to where even someone who is above me and my head brewer comes and talks to me. And like, I want people to be able to have that in this industry and not feel scared for their livelihoods. And I know that not every boss is going to be that way, but people, hey, if you are so afraid of the person that you're talking to is going to fire you, going to blow up on you, that's probably not a place that you want to be working at anyway. So, like, probably plan your exit strategy as it is. But yeah.
Absolutely.
You guys both make an excellent point about the communication. I think it is very easy for people to become resentful. I think we live in a society right now where people are looking at other things happening online where, most people put on their best face. They're on Instagram using filters and saying, "Oh, I'm at the beach. I'm having a great time. Life is beautiful." And, you're not seeing the true story. You're not seeing the full picture. You're not seeing the bad days. Like I've said here before, no brewery ever posts a photo of like a cellarman having a fucking terrible day, or my first brewery never posted a photo of me crying in the office because I had to miss my kid's soccer game that night, shit like that. And the communication is important in all things, not just this, but when it's your livelihood and your career, you damn well better be honest. And that kind of tied into what I was saying last episode in my last call about having hard conversations, and it's a little bit of what I'll be talking about in a bit, but it's hugely important. I mean, I've said a million times here, it's the old fucking craft beer circle jerk okie doke. I mean, a lot of people are in this business because no one had the heart to tell them that their homebrew sucked. Oh, it was the best thing I ever had, much better than that Budweiser piss, man. And, like with my first boss, I was very afraid at times. I mean, I was new, I was green, I was learning as I went. And as I had what I thought for me was a unique approach and feeling toward doing what I was doing, because there were certain people we worked with who just kind of took it for granted. And no matter how many times they fucked up and got away with it, they would just kind of keep doing that. They wouldn't learn from it. They really took no pride in what they were doing. I was approaching it as if it had saved my life. I mean, literally and figuratively. I was in cubicle hell for 15 years, and I was finally doing something I enjoyed. And to me, that was everything. So that was how I, approached it all for a long time in the beginning. And I was also kind of afraid of the person I was working for because of the stories you would hear about attitude or being talked to in a certain way, talking to employees in certain ways, shit like that. People can kind of put on a hard ass kind of front, and that makes you hesitant to go to them or confide in them with certain things. But after a point, it got to me like, hey, this is the most important thing I've done aside from, start my own family. And I've got people here who are fucking up, and, something needs to be fixed. So, when I wouldn't go to them often, but when I did go to the boss, it was important, and I always felt better afterward. I always felt better getting it off my chest, and I always approached it from, hey, like, this is about the beer. It's not about me or ego or any of that shit. It's about, this is what's happening to your beer, and it needs to be fixed. And I always felt better afterward. Even if maybe I didn't get the answer I was looking for, at least I got it out of me. And believe me, I have a PhD in keeping things bottled up. So, that kind of stuff is really important. And anything, I mean, this feels like it could go on a roots level episode, series, this topic.
I mean, anything to do with this, because it also relates to everybody's job in every industry, because people are dealing with this stuff like this all over. I want people to feel empowered, and I want people to be able to ask for what they actually need and not feel like they have to settle for something. And I realize that comes from a point of privilege. Mike, recently, when you have made your tweak in your current job role, a lot of that is the privilege to be able to do so. And
for sure.
that is incredible. Not everyone can do that. In fact, almost nobody. Statistically, no one can do what you are deciding to do with your career, but you're able to, and you're demanding what you want to be happy. Maybe you can't do that, but maybe you demand a little more respect from the people around you. Maybe you come up with more suggestions. Maybe you come to the table and say, hey, can I help? Can I do something to make this place better? And I have learned so much from the people that have worked for me directly. I've learned so much from the people that I've worked for. I've taken a little snippet from everybody. And I feel like I'm a better person and I'm better at my job because of it. And if people have cut those things bottled up, we wouldn't be. And I think Joel is in a better position now at Barrel of Monks than he would have been if everyone had kept their mouth closed 5 years ago and not told me the things that were frustrated for them. So you don't just make yourself better. When you move on, you make other people's lives better. When you are a little bit of a squeaky wheel, I would just always recommend just talking about the things that are problems is important. But if you can come up with a solution, if you can come up with a suggestion, if you can come up with a way to do things better, more efficiently, better in general, that's the magic pill, man.
Is it the red or the blue?
Green.
Perfect.
Each exactly what you are.
I think, like was mentioned, this is something that we could probably talk about for quite a while. So it's probably best to just cut it here because we're at an hour.
And we want to know what you think, listeners. So hit us up and let us know at United We Drink on all the social medias. United We Drink Pod somewhere, Mike?
Instagram.
I have a feeling that no one's going.
Am I being fired? Am I being? Am I expendable on this podcast? Because I don't think any of you can edit.
The technical term is repositioned.
Oh, thank you.
But I was just going to say, I don't think I'm going to be getting any bottles of whiskey after this episode, guys.
You were asking for $10,000. That's something.
Well, Kevin, you will, except the cap will have already been removed, and there's going to be a rag stuffed inside it with one end lit. And it's going to be coming at you at high velocity.
Through my window. But that's what I thought. I thought if I start at $10,000 and go down to a bottle of whiskey, it's going to seem like a deal.
All right. I think it's a good time for last calls. The point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want to, unopposed, unobjected, uninterrupted, for the most part. Sometimes I say something, sometimes Kevin says something, sometimes Joel says something. But we try to be lock and key on this. I'll kick things off real quick here. I want to highly recommend a TV show on Apple TV Plus, if you have that thing. If you watch Ted Lasso, you do. Called Severance. I really enjoyed that show. It was a little slow starting at first, but it is really mindfucky, and I love kind of psychological TV shows like this. Some Twin Peaks like things going on there. Adam, like the cast is amazing. Adam Scott, Patricia Arquette, Christopher Walken, John Turturro. It's an amazing cast and a really fun story. And we just finished it up last night, and I loved that show. And if you're into the weird, wacky, being thrown some curveballs here and there, I highly recommend it. Joel.
So this ties into the topic of tough conversations, and every now and then the Instagram advertising algorithm shows me some interesting things that I'm like, you know what, I'm going to buy that. And I got these 2 decks of cards from this company called Best Self. One is they have several different decks with different themes. They could be like kind of business leadership questions, or they could be, like relationship things. I got the intimacy deck. This is a deck of 150 different cards with various questions on them among 6 different categories: past, random, life, relationship, intimacy, and about you. And these are, 150 cards in the deck. So, if you do one every other night, you got a whole year's worth of conversations with your significant other. I thought it would be good for being more open and having conversations. If I can quickly read you the description in the, the instructions, if you'll call it. Whether you're starting a new relationship or reinvigorating an existing one, the intimacy deck will get you talking at a deep and meaningful level. With prompts that encourage you to speak your truth, share your past, and plan for your future, it's your guide to a healthier and happier relationship. Pick a card, ask your partner the question, and see where your conversation leads. You might be surprised by the twists and turns your discussions take. These questions are designed to help you get to know each other better, so get ready to be open, vulnerable, and even a little uncomfortable. And there are definitely some uncomfortable questions in here. Something like, here's one. When was the last time our relationship pushed you outside your comfort zone? Describe the situation. When did you realize you were in love with me? Shit like that. I mean, these are just good fucking conversations to have. We've already done 2 of the cards so far, and they actually did lead to longer conversations than I expected, and they were very simple questions. They're not all deeply intimate. Some of them are kind of basic, but they also may be things that you just never talk about. And, I figured I'd save on shipping and get another deck. This one is called Little Talk. This one is for you and your kids. I think one area where I really fail as much as I try is communication with my kids. I try to be as open and honest with them as possible, but conversationally, I don't think I do a very good job at getting to know them and their in and out daily life kind of stuff, and that's really important to me. So there's also a deck, where you can pull out cards and talk to your kids. One example is, what did you do today that made you feel proud? Tell me about something you're really good at. Some of these seem very basic, but they can actually spark real conversation, and I like it a lot. So I'm looking forward to having a lot of good conversations with my family using these cards, and I really recommend you guys picking it up. It's called Best Self.
Awesome. I'm kind of intrigued by that myself. Kevin?
A short while ago, we lost a man named Gilbert Gottfried. Comedian. One of my absolute heroes in the world of comedy. A lot of people know him as, obviously, the voice of the Aflac Duck and the voice in Aladdin. And I understand anybody who... Gilbert was never a cultural touchstone like a George Carlin or a Lenny Bruce. Gilbert was, as they said, a comedian's comedian, the comedian that every other comedian thought was one of the funniest people in the world, even though many people never saw his stand-up or couldn't recite any of his routines. But he was so brilliant and so electric in the way that he performed comedy that he just made every other funny person in the world gravitate to him. I was lucky enough to see him live 3 times. I saw him, and I would have seen him... Let me back up real quickly. Gilbert Gottfried had been doing basically the same act for about 20 years. But he was such a genius, and he was so good at it, and he was such a performer that I could have seen that same show 20 more times. And on a regular basis, because he recently, before he passed away, moved to Boca Raton in the city that I live in, and there's a couple small comedy clubs around here, I would check every couple of weeks to see if Gilbert had a show coming up, and I would have gone to see him over and over and over again, because watching Gilbert Gottfried gave me joy. joy for a performer who would step outside the lines, that would color outside the lines, that would say outrageous, insightful, and sometimes disgusting things in a safe and beautiful way. And I feel lucky, so lucky to have seen a performer of his caliber in person in a way that I haven't seen some of my other favorite musicians and comedians and things of that nature. And for whatever reason, this death, the celebrity death, hit me harder than most. And I've always been the kind of person who, even if I loved a celebrity or I loved a musician, I didn't know them personally. I didn't want to take it personally. I didn't want to act like this was a thing that was going to really bother me because I didn't know them. Yes, I won't get to consume their content anymore, but they weren't my friend. I can't take a loss. They have people to mourn them. This one I felt because I feel like there's never going to be another person like Gilbert Gottfried. There's never going to be another comedian with that kind of voice. And it got me thinking that I don't know a Gilbert Gottfried. I don't know someone who is the best person in their field. I don't know a certifiable genius in their job necessarily. But I know a lot of people who are fucking brilliant in their own way, that are unique, that have a unique voice, a unique perspective. And those people are still there in my life, and I need to be able to spend more time with them, appreciate that time, and cultivate those relationships to get the most out of those relationships and the most out of that kind of time, and learn the most. Like I learned to enjoy so many things from Gilbert. So I so recommend people to go and find find clips on YouTube of Gilbert doing roasts and doing stuff at the Friars Club and listen to bits from Stern and go listen to his podcast, Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast, where he would just have these long esoteric conversations about the Three Stooges and just this time in Hollywood and this minutia of entertainment that you might not even care about, but somehow becomes magical when people love them. And I look at someone on my computer screen like Joel who loves the Batman. Like I don't know if I love my wife as much as Joel loves the Batman. And I love my wife. Okay, Allie, please trust me. But I want to know more about Joel's love of the Batman. And part of that is because I want to know more about Gilbert Gottfried and his love of comedy. And I think that people like that make our lives richer, make us appreciate things more. They heighten our senses. And so I'm going to really miss Gilbert.
Isn't there a documentary about him as well?
Thank you, Mike. The documentary is called Gilbert. It will break your heart. It will make you fall in love with that man. He was a maniac, a certifiable maniac. And for somebody, and to bring my wife back into this, even though I've just insulted her and said that Joel loves Batman more than I love her, my wife would not appreciate a lot of Gilbert's comedy, as far as his outrageous situations and the sexual things and the home. I mean, there's tons of things in Gilbert's act that she would not approve of. She watched that documentary with me when it came out, and when Gilbert died, we watched it again. And she loved watching that documentary, and she did it twice. Not just for me, but because she enjoyed watching it. So even if you're not a huge fan of his style of comedy, you can definitely get something out of watching that documentary and see someone's life and see that interest.
Awesome.
Well said. I actually wanted to bring up Gilbert, but I just felt like I could not eulogize a third legendary comedian in 7 fucking months. I mean, Norm Macdonald was devastating. Bob Saget was devastating. Gilbert was devastating, but by the time Gilbert happened, I was like exhausted. Like I just... Because like, not as legendary, obviously, but still, Louis Anderson even. We lost Louis Anderson. And comedically, like, I don't know, but He's in a lot of stuff I have fond memories of, like Coming to America. You know, he's one of those childhood guys. So, fuck. I'm worn out with all of the deaths of great people.
Sad. But we have their catalog. We have the way that they've inspired us and the people that have inspired them and who are doing great work now. There's great artists, there's great directors, there's great musicians, and great comedians out there working hard. If Doug Stanhope dies anytime soon, I'm just going to kill myself. So, Doug, please wrap yourself in bubble wrap, man. I can't take another one. He would be my that would be a big one.
Kevin, when you and I saw Gilbert live mere months ago, he did a joke about molesting the kid on the set of Problem Child. And it was doubly one of the greatest things I ever heard because A, it is so deliciously offensive, and B, when I'm in a public space at any kind of show, I have a real problem focusing, and I'm constantly kind of scanning the audience and looking at their reactions. And there was a probably younger kind of, I guess, Gen Z maybe couple.
We're into United We Drink After Hours here.
Well, real quick, the girl, literally anytime Gilbert said anything, especially the Problem Child joke, there was just a look of shock and horror and where am I? Why am I here? Holy shit, what is happening? Why are these things being said in public? And that's what reminds me of George Carlin, where he said, you know, the comedian's job is to, you know, show where the line is drawn, deliberately cross it, bring you across with him, and make you glad that he did. And I think Gilbert was an expert at that.
For sure.
I think I actually missed going to a Gilbert show with you guys because I think I was in Portland at the time. You guys went with our friends Ryan and Tim and had a good time. Kevin, anything you want to plug?
No.
Joel?
Come see us at Barrel of Monks. Enjoy some awesome beers. I guess by the time this airs, we will be about to have another can release, Kevin. We've got
Endless Enigma and Monk in the Park are coming out, yeah.
Yeah. And more Wizard cans.
Yep.
Dope. I'll give a shout out to Copper Point. We are having our anniversary on May 14th at the brewery. It's our 7th anniversary. We'll have beer and food trucks and live music and all the fun. I don't know what kind of beers we're going to have yet because, you know, small businesses, we wait till the last minute on some of this stuff, but hopefully you follow us within the next week or so. We'll start announcing some beers that we have coming out for that. You can follow me at Mike Loves Beer on Instagram and Twitter. And you can follow the show at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. Our website is unitedwedrink.com. We're on all of the major podcast services: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcast, Amazon, wherever you can find podcasts. If for some reason we're not on whatever service that you're using, hit us up, info@unitedwedrink.com, or on any of those social media things, and I'll do whatever it takes to get on there. If
we are not on a service that they're using, how are they hearing us to tell us that we need to be on a new service?
You know what? Good point. Fuck that service.
I've been wanting to ask that for every episode I've ever been on. It's the first time I've been brave enough to interrupt you. Sorry.
Thank you, Kevin. I will leave that out of future podcasts. If you want to support the show, Monetarily, you can visit some of our sponsors and brands that we really love at our website, unitedwedrink.com/sponsors. You can buy some Liquid Death. You can buy some amazing cookware from Made In. One of these days, I'm going to make a little video and show you how many pieces of Made In cookware I have in my fucking house. I still have glassware for you guys, which I should have given to Kevin a couple weeks ago when he was over at my house hanging out. Because they have beer glasses as well. They have wine glasses. They have all the amazing pans and saucepans and pots and knives and all of the amazing stuff. If you go to unitedwedrink.com/madein, MADEIN, I'm doing one of the ads right now. You can get some amazing stuff and support this show. We also have our store, unitedwedrink.com/store. We can get a shirt, button, sticker, or anything else over there. We're going on too long. I thought this was a fun episode. We'll be back in a couple weeks to talk about who knows what. Maybe we'll get real again. Maybe. For Joel, Kevin, thanks everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm vengeance.
Everyone's going to see how the sausage is made, as they say.